In today's episode, I am going to talk about the hard lessons I have learned in the past 10 years as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, side hustler, all the things. I wanted to share some of these lessons because I know a lot of people are dreaming of starting their own thing. I'm currently focused on building Brooke Roberts' brand. And so I'm on that journey with you. But here are some lessons and things I'm taking forward into the next chapter of my life that I think will be really helpful for you. So let's go to the show. Welcome back, everybody. If you're new around here, my name is Brooke Roberts. I am a 10-year veteran entrepreneur. And before that, I ran a large company called goabroad.com. I have a lot of entrepreneurial experience of building something from nothing or from small to big. I want to share my learnings over the last decade, and hopefully it's helpful to you. So number one is super practical and probably not sexy at all, but it's probably the most important thing, is I want you to make sure that you saved up 6 months of living costs before you ever even consider leaving your full-time job. So what does living cost mean? It doesn't mean you're going to live your best life and you're going out to meals all the time and you go on multiple holidays all the time. That's not the budget we're setting. We're setting I need to live somewhere. I need to eat some things on a budget. I need to have a phone for communication. I need to have a vehicle for transportation. And maybe I have student loan debt, so I need to budget that in as well. Whatever your most minimal viable income can be, that's your set point for each month, and then multiply that times 6. And that's the number we're aiming for that you need to save in the bank. Now, this is separate from an emergency fund that's for your life, like you're in a bad accident or something horrible happens. You want to have an emergency fund as well. It's separate from savings and retirement investment, all those things. Saving this money is going to be in conjunction with investing in these other areas of your life as well. But that 6 months is incredibly powerful because not only is it actual money that can be helpful to you if you need to dip into it later on, but also it's just going to give you this mental and emotional bandwidth so that you can truly focus on building whatever it is you're building and not be so stressed about what if. Your what if is in the bank account, and that's there for you to give you a little bit of peace of mind. And then you can put your energy and focus over here to build the thing to start earning an income. So it's number one piece of advice. I did not do this. I got investor funding externally for my first company. So I had money in the bank, in my business bank account, but I did not have money in my account. I had a little bit of saving, but not 6 months worth of living expenses. And if I could do anything over, if I'd had a choice or if I'd had mentorship or anything at that time, and somebody said, instead of quitting now, I think it was like April 2013, why don't you quit in January 2014 and build this on the side? There are a lot of reasons I couldn't do that at the time, but if I had that as an option, I would have. 6 months, living expenses in the bank, no problem. The second lesson, before you quit your job and you're building something out, I want you to make sure from a revenue point of view, you understand exactly what the key drivers of your business are. And if you aren't sure what key drivers are, I have a whole episode early in the podcast. I will link to it down below. I talk about the 4 key drivers of an online business and the 4 key components you have to have in place in order to earn an income, but also a consistent income over time. And so if you don't know what those 4 components are and you have not tested them to prove that they will work or that they do work, then you are not ready to go all in on your business. If you're not making any money, you don't have any kind of system to bring in income, then you are not ready. So whether you want to be an influencer, that's great, or you want to start a drop shipping company or an Etsy shop or a knowledge commerce kind of business like I've done, whatever it is, you have to have those 4 key drivers. You have to be discovered, you have to capture leads, convert the leads to sales, and have a product to sell them. Those are the 4 key drivers. And if you don't have all those things proven and tested in your business, you're not ready to quit your job. So make sure you have those in place. Before I move on, I think a lot of people are like, oh, but I just want to create content on the internet. I want to be a content creator. That's great. People are making great money as content creators. But at the same time, you have to know how you're going to earn income. So if you're going to do it through sponsorships and brand deals, and that's your primary income driver for your business, that's your product, is that you're going to offer sponsorship opportunities, you still have to get discovered. You still have to get leads of the people who make that decision. And you have to have a way to turn those leads, those people who make the sponsorship decisions, into clients, into customers who are buying that sponsorship package. You still have to have a system in place for that and have it tested and proven that it works. I could run you through lots of models for different types of business of how that works and those 4 components, but make sure you have all 4 in place and tested and proven. All right. The third is that when you are planning out your business and you're thinking about the projections of what it can earn over time or what it will cost to run this business over time, you need to be ruthlessly realistic about what those numbers are, especially when it comes to financial projections. So my word of advice, if you built out spreadsheets and you said, oh, I'm going to need all this software and I'm going to need this component and I'm going to need to hire a part-time person or whatever things that you're projecting you're going to need to run your business, those are your expenses. But you're also probably projecting, if I sell X number of this product, I will bring in this amount of revenue. Great. When you get those numbers, I want you to do 3 things. I want you to double how much time it'll take to hit those numbers. So if you're like, oh, in 12 months, I will hit 6 figures, double the time. It'll take 2 years to hit 100,000 versus a year. Okay. So double the amount of time it's going to take you to hit those goals. I want you to double how much it will cost to hit those goals. So be like, okay, I'm going to need more software than I think I'm going to need. I'm going to double that number. So double the time, double the expenses, and then half the results. So if you think you're going to sell 50 every day for the next year, I want you to assume you're going to do 25 a day, or maybe it's a conversion rate. If you think, oh, I'm going to hit a 10% conversion rate, I want you to assume you're going to get a 5%. That's probably still too high, but whatever those numbers are, what you're making assumptions about, I want you to half that number because you're likely not going to hit it. And I'd rather you over-index those projections and be super surprised and happy about it than to underperform and then not have enough money in the bank earmarked for all these things you've made plans for. Because that's a big challenge, is that if you make these projections and then you're like, okay, I'm seeing into this mystical future and you think you're going to have $100,000 in the next 12 months, but you only have 50, that's going to force you to make very different decisions, staying in a job, leaving a job, where you're going to invest that money, whether it's people that help you grow it or more software, more automation, more whatever, more products. Like you're going to have to make different decisions based on those realities. And so I'd rather you operate from a more conservative perspective financially than a pie in the sky, wouldn't it be great scenario. I made this mistake when I started my first company, Yoga Travel Tree. I had a proper business plan and financial projections and all the things. And I needed this advice. I needed to be like, all right, that's really aggressive. That would be a fun dream to achieve all those things you just described. But I want you to double the time, double the expenses, half the revenue. And now make decisions based on those numbers, because it's a very different process forward. The fourth hard lesson I had to learn is that actually this was an easy lesson because I've always done this really well. And this is actually something that I give advice, whether you're trying to grow your career, trying to grow a business, but you need to think of your competition as potential collaborators. I don't want you to have a negative mindset and animosity and frustration or jealousy or any of those negative feelings towards people who are doing something very similar to you. You need to think of them as one, either proof that what you're trying to do is possible. That's always a great starting point. If somebody's already successful doing the thing that you want to do, that's a great indicator that you have the possibility of being successful doing the thing as well. The second element to this is your network in your career, in your business, anything you're trying to do is incredibly valuable. And it can be an incredible game changer in how successful you become or how supported you feel if you feel like you're doing this in community versus just on your own, truly out there, nomad in the desert. But I will say that this mindset of thinking of people as collaborators was incredibly powerful in me growing my career. That's why I've been able to be headhunted multiple times in my job, is because of networking, is because of seeing people as potential collaborators, of giving and supporting other people with the hope that those things will come back around and they'll want to support and help me later on, which in many cases they did. I want you to be open to the possibility of getting to know people, get to know them virtually online, or message people and say, hey, we're at the same level. We're trying to do something similar. Let's have a Zoom coffee date. Start building a network of people that could potentially be collaborators. And I promise you, it'll feel just so much better than that super competitive, looking at everybody like they're coming after your stuff. Think abundantly about your competition And I promise you, you'll see a lot more success. Number 5 of hard lessons learned in my journey is that everyone needs to diversify their key drivers in their business, but only when you have mastered the first one. So what do I mean by this? Before, when I described those 4 key drivers, we got your discovery, we got your lead, we got your sales, and we have your product, right? Those are the 4 key drivers of any business. And if your key driver for discovery is Instagram, let's say, I want you to master Instagram. I want you to master growing and getting discovered and getting more people following you before you then decide, obviously I need to be on TikTok now, or obviously I need to have a YouTube channel, whatever those drivers might be that you're exploring. The idea here is that you do need to diversify over time, but you shouldn't do it at the expense of overextending yourself and not being able to deliver in a meaningful way on all of them. I made this mistake. I still continue to make this mistake. This is really hard. The inclination, the tendency to want to do all the things and be all the places all at the same time, everything, everywhere, all at once. Great movie, by the way. Then that mentality can Achilles heel to most people because now you're spread too thin. It's really hard to grow and master Instagram while simultaneously growing and mastering TikTok and YouTube and all the other things. So I want you to choose one, master it, get great at it, and then move on to next. And that is true for all 4 components. So if your main sales driver, let's say, is sales calls, like you get on the phone to convert people to buy your website design services, that's great. But once you've mastered that and you've got that locked in and it's completely working for you, your conversion rate is amazing, then you would look at what are other ways I could start making those sales? What are other ways people can get in and purchase products from me? What is that sales driver going to look like? I need you to diversify your key drivers, but only when you've mastered at least one for each category. The real big reason that you need to diversify all of these key drivers in time is that you do not want to put all your eggs in one single basket. For instance, you don't want to put all your eggs in the Instagram basket for discovery if all of a sudden the algorithm changes or your account gets hacked and stolen and you have to start from scratch. Like all of these sort of outside forces that truly you have no complete control over, they could totally wreck your business in the matter of one simple change or one simple thing happening. And a great example of this is when I ran Go Abroad, early days, Instagram didn't exist yet. We built a Facebook fan page to over 100,000 followers. And at that time, it was a key driver to traffic to the website, which is a really important component to our business success. We needed leads, people coming to the website and searching programs and using that database. Literally overnight, the next day, looking at our Google Analytics, our Facebook traffic as a source went from 50%, let's say, of our traffic to 5% of our traffic. We were just not getting any of the traffic that we previously had. And the reason is that Facebook had changed their algorithm. And that was in the era like 2010, 2011-ish, when basically they were saying, no, we need these businesses to pay to play. That's when they were introducing their ad model and boosted posts and all these things. And they said, well, we're not going to just send you free traffic anymore. You're going to have to pay to get boosted in the algorithm for people to see your stuff. That changed our business overnight. Luckily, we were diversified. We had other sources of traffic, but yeah, we panicked for a few weeks when we were like, what are we going to do when our numbers tank? And so you don't want to see that happen in your business. Do not build any one of these key drivers on land that can shift underneath you at any given moment. The next piece of advice or hard lessons that I had to learn in my entrepreneurial journey is that if you're thinking about changing your strategies or pivoting your business in any way, you need to take a step back before you make any decision and ask yourself, am I wanting to make this change because I'm bored? Or is this change going to actually help the business find more success moving forward? Because those are 2 very different things. And I will say the most successful companies are rinse and repeat. They find something that works and they do it over and over again. And it gets a little boring internally because you're like, I'm talking about the same thing over and over again, or I'm delivering the same product over and over again. But most people discovering you, they're discovering it for the first time. So it is fresh and new for them. Whereas for you, you're just thinking, God, do I have to talk about resumes again? Yeah, a lot of people want to talk about resumes over and over again, or they're just discovering it for the first time. And for me, it's repetitive. For other people, it's new and interesting content. Think about, am I just getting bored with what we're doing? Or is this a really strategic move for this? My suggestion is to not pivot or change dramatically until you've got a financial runway and systems in place that are already working. For instance, at Yoga Travel Tree, we had to pivot about 2 years-ish into the business. And it was not for not trying to get the original business model to work. But I found over time that like, wow, I just cannot get this to convert. I cannot get this business model to functionally work where it's going to make enough income to pay me, let alone the team, et cetera. So I just knew that the model was flawed, but not without looking under every bush to see how we can make that work. And instead pivoted to something that just came much easier. And we saw success almost immediately. And it became very clear that this was a model that could work over time. And so then for the next 4 years, that was our business model before I decided to close it down. It became very successful in that arena. But I had to really ask myself, am I just tired of trying to sell this product? Or is this product just innately flawed? And in my case, it was innately flawed. So I did pivot. But for Inside Study Abroad, my other company, there were many years where I was just getting tired of talking about growing your career. And I realized the product is still great. It's still working. People are still buying it. People are still asking about it. People still want it. They're getting success from it. All the indicators of success were there. But me personally, I was just getting bored. I was just getting bored with talking about the same thing over and over. And so I continued on with that business after that because I knew that I had something that worked and I just had to find other ways to make it more interesting. And I did. I launched an additional suite of products that energized me, but I already had a system in place that worked and was proven. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about shifting and pivoting. Ask yourself, am I bored or is this necessary for the business? Another hard lesson I had to learn early on is that I needed to create and build out systems and automation sooner. I'm not saying you need to start with this because I think doing the unscalable stuff early in your business is really powerful. Things like sales calls, individualized DMs, things that you have to manually do repetitively over and over. It's hard to scale unless you add in systems and automation and technology to help you scale it. So I highly recommend doing the unscalable early in your business, but you do need to start thinking, how am I going to systematize this? How am I going to automate it? It's going to help you do several things moving forward. One, it's going to help you onboard team members. If you decide to grow as a team and want to move beyond solopreneur, you'll have systems in place that they can plug into and learn and then deliver on those systems. You'll have things in place where you say, this is how we do this thing in our business. Step 1, step 2, step 3, et cetera. So you'll be able to hand them those things and say, hey, you can run with it because here's the instruction manual, basically. But automation and systems are also going to help you scale beyond the unscalable, right? So you can start doing things like driving leads, driving sales, delivering a product without you having to touch every single step of that process. And that's really the beauty of online business, is because you can automate so much through technology. And I've talked a lot about that in past episodes, and we'll talk more about it in the future. But automation was really the tipping point for Inside Study Abroad, where I used to do these live launches and it was very hands-on, manual in almost every capacity. It was still online, but I had to do most of the things to make it happen. And when I started introducing sales funnels into that process, I was able to go from making $25,000 3 times a year to making $10,000 every single month. That was a huge game changer because obviously it gave me a lot more financial security, consistent income over time. Chef's kiss, the most beautiful thing I ever did in my business. And then the pandemic hit, but we'll talk about that another time. So those are my hard-learned lessons in entrepreneurship. And there's many more, but those are the big ones that came to mind when I started brainstorming this episode. I hope that was helpful and give you a little insight and inspiration in how you can move forward with your business if you're thinking about starting your own. Or if you're in the thick of starting your own thing, maybe these are lessons you have also learned. You're like, yes, cosign, I agree with some of these tips. Or maybe you're just early stages and you want to stop yourself from fumbling forward through some of these. I hope it's helpful. And again, I will link down to that Key Drivers video and podcast down in the description and show notes below, so you can go and learn more about what those key drivers are and why they're so important for your business. Thank you so much for listening, tuning into this episode. Remember that every day you postpone a dream, you weaken it a little. So get out there, make some magic happen. Cheers.